Anyway, let's have a look at Shabbos. There's a concept within Shabbos, which I mentioned, we should have spoken about this a while ago, but you know what, better late than never, where it says that the way that we speak on Shabbos, these are all rooted inside of verses from the Nevi'im, from the prophets actually, but the way that we speak on Shabbos and the way that we walk on Shabbos and the way that we dress on Shabbos should all be different than it is during the week. Right? Now that's like a real uphill struggle, you know. We have to, our thought process has to be completely different on Shabbos than it is throughout the rest of the week. So there's a very beautiful story the Gemara tells of a person who had a field and there was a fence going around the field, and he decided that, you know, he's walking around his field and he sees over there that there's a hole in the fence. A wooden fence going around. He sees there's a hole over there, and he decides that, you know, on Motzei Shabbos, I have to take care of this. And then he realized, hold on a second, it's Shabbos, you know, I'm not allowed to be thinking about things like this on Shabbos. He says, you know, I'm not gonna take care of it. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu made a bush grow up to cover the hole inside of the fence, right over there where the hole was. This bush grew up and it covered up the hole. What's the Gemara? The Gemara is saying like this, you know, 6 days in the week we have a certain kind of a mindset. There's no doubt about it, right? We're in weekday mode, right? Even when you're in yeshiva and your life is being sort of very much run according to more spiritual dimensions, right? Nevertheless, you know, during the week it's a weekday. When we get to Shabbos, we've got to switch modes entirely. We've got to move into Shabbos mode. Moving into Shabbos mode means that we've got to think differently than we do during the rest of the week. And I think that part of this is the reason why we have to dress differently on Shabbos. Part of that is the reason why we have to even walk differently on Shabbos.
What do you mean by walking differently?
I'll talk about it in a minute, right? But it's the idea of what, if we physically do things which are different on Shabbos,
take the physical and make it spiritual.
I think over here, I think it's something even more basic actually, which is if we physically behave differently on Shabbos, then we will mentally behave differently on Shabbos as well, right? You know, there's a very famous Jewish joke about this fellow comes into shul and he sits down. And his neighbor says to him, it's a phrase in Yiddish, Nishtin Shabbos Gered. He says, you know, we shouldn't talk about these things on Shabbos, he says, but here your car is for sale. So the fellow says to him back, you know, Nishtin Shabbos Gered. He says, we shouldn't talk about these things on Shabbos. He says, but yes, it's true. So the fellow says to him, Nishtin Shabbos Gered. He says, how much do you want for it? So the fellow looks at me and says, Nishtin Shabbos Gered. He says, but, you know, I want $7,000. So the fellow then, okay, whatever. Anyway, so they carry on davening, and anyway, go home. They have their suda. They come back for mincha, and the fellow comes up to me and says, "Listen," he says, "Nishin Shabbos Gered." He says, "We shouldn't talk about these things on Shabbos." He says, "But you know, maybe I'll buy your car." So the fellow says, "Nishin Shabbos Gered." He says, "I sold it already." There's an Indian over here, right? You know, we are not supposed to be thinking about vachadika things. We're not supposed to be thinking about weekday things. We're just not, right? And it's very, very hard. You know, a person's got a business that he's running, and it gets to Erev Shabbos, and now all of a sudden Shabbos, that's it. You know, no more thinking about business. No more. You're like, I don't know. You've got something big that's happening on Motzei Shabbos, right? On Saturday night, you've got something like some big thing that you've got to go to, or a trip that you're going to go on. You're not supposed to be thinking about it on Saturday night until Saturday night, right? On Shabbos, you're not supposed to think about it. If you know where I come from in England, so football, as in soccer, it's a pretty much a part. I'm using this word very broadly, but it's pretty much a part of the culture in England. And, you know, most football matches take place on Saturday afternoon. And I remember as a kid, you know, it was hard work. Like, you wanted to know how your team was doing, right? And it was hard work on Shabbos afternoon at mincha time not to go to the non-Jewish caretaker in the shul to find out what was going on.
Do you know what was even harder? Finding out through teletext.
I mean, I'm just telling you. It's like, are you supposed to be thinking about what your football team is doing on Shabbos afternoon? No, you're not. But hold on a second, they're playing. How do you do that? So I'm telling you, I don't have any sort of like simple answers. Like, if you mutter some kind of a special formula over here, and then it's going to be okay. But it's something that a person needs to work on in order to turn his Shabbos into an environment and turn his Shabbos into an atmosphere that does not allow for the weekday to work its way into it. That's really something, right? That's something very, very difficult to do. I'm not, and I'll tell you something more than that. I think it's something difficult to do every Shabbos. I don't think it's something that, you reach that level this Shabbos, that means that next Shabbos it's going to be easy. And the Shabbos after that it's going to be easy, because now that you've reached that level, then you'll just stay on that level. I don't think it works like that. I really don't. Every week has got its own, every week has got its own things inside of it, and every week has got its own, its own dimensions that need to be dealt with, and you get to Shabbos and you're not supposed to be dealing with it. It's a big thing. That's why it says, that's what I think. That's why it says that we're supposed to dress differently, because if you dress differently, then you've got a constant reminder over here that this is not the rest of the week. This is something else altogether, right? And you're supposed to walk differently as well. So it says like this. What does it mean, walking differently? So it says that you should rush to shul and you should walk back from shul slowly. Now, I'll tell you what I think. Right? I've never seen this written down anywhere, but I'll tell you what I think. I think the pshat is I think it's exactly the same as wearing clothing. I really do. Does it matter if you walk slowly to shul and you rush back from shul? I don't think that's what the issue is over here. The issue over here is what? That we have to know that today is different. I need to know that on the way there I should be rushing because I have to walk in a certain way because it's Shabbos, it's not the rest of the week.
But if you look at the rest of the week, you're going to be rushing back from shul because you've got your daily jobs to do and everything like that.
Oh, so you're saying maybe it's flipping everything around?
Yeah.
Maybe. You know what? Maybe. But I'm saying, you know what? I think maybe you're right. But I think over here is simply a constant reminder that it's Shabbos. So even if you have to stop and think, you have to say, hold on a second, how am I coming back? Right? Am I walking back slowly or am I walking back quickly? So everything's supposed to be different. Your whole approach to what's going on during Shabbos is supposed to be different. I once had the schus, the merit, to daven in the same minyan on Shabbos as Rav Pinchas Scheinberg. Rav Pinchas Scheinberg was one of the greatest rabbis of the generation. He didn't die very long ago, and he didn't speak on Shabbos at all except for Divrei Torah. I mean, obviously prayers, right? But he wouldn't speak anything at all unless it was Torah related. And I remember being taken by my host. I was taken to wish him a good Shabbos afterwards. I was pretty young at the time, probably, I don't know, maybe 13, 14, maybe. Never come across anybody who didn't speak on Shabbos. That was, and got taken later, lined up together with everybody else to go around and say good Shabbos to him. And my host explained that I came from England and I was there it was the summer, and I was there, just as a guest passing through. And he asked Rav Scheinberg if he would give me a bracha. So he didn't speak, Rav Scheinberg. He just gave me a pinch on my cheek, and he gave me an enormous smile, and that was a bracha. And I tell you, it's an interesting thing, until today I can see this absolutely vividly. It's like it's there. If I don't even have to try very hard to feel him pinching my cheek, to be honest. It was a real bracha, it really was. But you saw somebody there who was living Shabbos in a way that, okay, fine, maybe it's beyond us, right? Maybe it's beyond us to be on that kind of a level where you're not going to say anything that's not Torah related. You're not going to speak at all. But nevertheless, to see it, right? To see that idea, it's something else. They say about the Chofetz Chaim, that the first time that the Chofetz Chaim saw somebody who was Mechalel Shabbos, he went to a different place and he saw somebody being Mechalel, a Jew, transgressing Shabbos, he fainted. Right? I don't know, that's a pretty high madrega, that's a pretty high level, yeah? But the most incredible thing about the story is that when he came to, and he remembered what he saw, he fainted again. There's an Ian over here, right?
And you just keep fainting over and over again, like, how did I get here? Oh, yeah.
I don't know. the end of the story, I don't know. Okay. But I'm just saying like this. Imagine, somebody's on the level where they see somebody transgressing Shabbos and they faint. That's incredible, right? But when they come round, so you've already been exposed to that already, no? I saw by the Hasidim, they say like this, it says that when Esav brought his wives into the encampment of Yitzchak and Rivka, it says that it bothered them terribly. They were terribly bothered by the idol worshipping that was going on. And it says according to the order of the verse, it says that Yitzchak, Isaac, was mentioned before Rivka, and by the Hasidim they say because Yitzchak was more bothered by it than Rivka was. So to explain why would that be? Because Rivka was brought up in an idol worshipping environment. Aye, but they say like this, yeah, but it was decades earlier. It doesn't matter. She's been a certain she's inured, a certain sense of inoculation, right? Yeah, Yitzchak, who's never been exposed to these kinds of things, he's bothered more than Rivka is. It's an Indian, I don't know. There was once a fellow came in here on Sunday morning, and he was almost in tears. I mean, I also feel like that on Sunday mornings, but his was for a different reason actually. So I asked him what the problem was. He told me like many people that became frum, he became frum through Shabbos. Shabbos was the catalyst. He got taken when he was in university. He got taken off to a Hillel house, and he had a Shabbos experience. And then a few years later, it started bothering him, right? And a few years later, he started doing something about it. And finally, he started becoming frum, and he started learning, and he got married, and he had kids. And he was learning in the yeshiva, but he was already, he had I don't know, 3 or 4 kids. And he said he was sitting at the Shabbos table, and he said for him, Shabbos was in a certain sense, was like a reenactment of that first Shabbos that he kept. For him, Shabbos was like a renewal of his commitment to keeping the mitzvahs and being connected to Hashem. And he said he's looking around the table at his children, and he said he began to realize that his children would never relate to Shabbos the way that he does. And he was almost in tears about it. And you know what? The truth is, it's sad. It really is sad. But I explained to him, what's the alternative? That he should not expose his children to Shabbos in the hope that maybe they'll pick up Shabbos on the way somewhere and then they'll have the same relationship with Shabbos that he had. We don't want our children to do that. That's for sure not. We want to expose our children to everything that we look at as being good and being true and being right. And if that's the case, then it's gonna come with certain restrictions. Somebody who's brought up their entire life keeping Shabbos is very often not going to have the same relationship to Shabbos to somebody who became frum because of Shabbos. Right? We all understand that. Yeah.
Sometimes that happens today, sort of like in reverse, where a lot of times a parent may not have had that, may not have experienced that at all, but they witness through their children, or maybe even grandchildren, that same aspect. And
yeah.
That comes their way.
Yeah. Which actually, Baruch Hashem, is great. Because that's one of the nevuahs, one of the prophecies that we've got, that the Messianic era is going to be upon us, is when the parents are following the children. Which is great, right? We've got a whole generation of people that have become children, become frum, and I don't know what the statistics are. Very often I've got no idea, but the impact that makes on the family is enormous. Even if the family never ostensibly become more religious, but the very fact that they've been exposed to somebody who is religious, and close proximity, is something which is. It's got a very beautiful dimension to it, so long as it's done properly. But obviously, when the child is constantly giving his parents a hard time because they're not doing this and they're doing that and they shouldn't have this and they should do that, then that's not going to get anybody anywhere, right? I always say that the most potent weapon in outreach, the most potent weapon that we've got is just to be disgustingly, revoltingly nice. It sounds ridiculous, right? But I'm really not kidding. It doesn't come down to how much you know, and it doesn't come down to how brilliant you are, and it doesn't come down to how sharp you are, and it doesn't come down to how you're able to answer questions. It comes down to being disgustingly, revoltingly nice. That's what it comes down to. I know it sounds ridiculous, but that's really what it is. You know, it says in the brachas before we say the Shema. On page 88, we say Ava Rabba in the morning before we begin the Shema. We say Ava Rabba Avtanu Hashem Elokeinu. God loves us. Wonderful, right? And then we say further in, we say V'sein b'libeinu. He should give our hearts lahavin, to understand, ulahaskil, to elucidate. Somebody's been reading the thesaurus over here, right? Lavin, lahaskil, lishmoa, to hear, lilmod, to learn, ulalamed, to teach, lishmor, to keep, v'lasois, and to do, v'lakayem, is called divrei haTalmud Torah secha b'yavad, in order to be able to keep everything the Torah says with love. Ask the Mefarshim, ask the commentaries. What does that mean? We say, I understand why we're asking God to let us learn Torah. Little
What does it mean
mod.
with love?
Huh?
What does it mean
That
with
you
love?
should want to do it. Right? That's also a big thing, actually. But here it says, Lil mod ulalamed, to learn and to teach. Right? There's a very obvious question over here. Right? Not everybody is going to go into teaching. Right?
but it doesn't
Some
mean-
people have to go into business so they can afford to pay tuition.
Yeah, but you
Right?
don't have
If
to be a
everybody
teacher.
went into chinuch, right?
Yeah,
If
but
every-
you don't have
No.
to be a teacher to know to teach what you do.
Hey, so what's the answer? The answer is that we have to teach by being role models to other people. No, it's not talking about getting up in front of a class and giving a class, or getting up in a lecture hall and giving a lecture. That's one way of teaching, that's for sure, right? But the other way of teaching is what? Is that you've got a next door neighbor. Just, be nice to your next door neighbor. Give a smile and say hello and invite them into your home for a Shabbos meal. And, just be role models for other people. The repercussions are absolutely enormous. You should know that. We live in a very disconnected world, which is a paradox, because of course everybody knows that everybody's connected to everybody with all these various, all these various social programs that you can have right within your computer, that you're connected 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. But we are a completely disconnected generation. People don't know how to have conversations anymore. People don't know how to build up relationships properly anymore, because everything now is being done through, bless you, this way. Sorry, this way. This way or this way? This way. We're completely disjointed. We really are. We're unconnected.
But Shabbos is something we can reconnect that part.
Oh, so one of the beauties of Shabbos, of course, is the fact that you can't use any of this stuff, which means, imagine you've got to sit down and you've actually got to talk to people. It's outrageous. It really is.
Shabbos good at.
Yeah. But the other dimension is what? Here, all of a sudden, we're being taught over here that again, I'm sorry, I really am. It sounds so incredibly trite, but just by being nice to other people, you are causing the most tremendous Kiddush Hashem. You're sanctifying God's name, and people are saying, "Wow, being from it's good. It is." I may not become from myself, but the very fact that my next door neighbor is somebody who is easy to get on with and who's happy, always happy to see me, it has a big impact. It really does. Which means on Shabbos, we gotta change our thought mode. We've got to do all kinds of things. Some people have a custom on Shabbos. They have a custom to learn certain things on Shabbos. Maybe they'll learn together with their children. They'll learn together with their wife. There's even a custom to go to sleep on Shabbos afternoon. Says the Gemara says sleeping on Shabbos it's an oineg, it's a tanug, it's a delight to sleep on Shabbos. It says that the Arizal, who never did anything that wasn't calculated according to, spiritual concepts and kavanot, right? It says that the Arizal would sleep for 2 hours on Shabbos afternoon. That was part of his avodah. That was part of his connection to the upper realms inside of Shabbos.
Nice to take a nap without guilt for once.
For sure. Only once a week, though. How do we do it? I don't know. I'll tell you something, though. Something I've seen from my own experience. Erev Shabbos is a crazy time it's just completely crazy, right? Mitzvah Hashem, when you people get married and you'll have your own homes and you'll see just how crazy it is. It doesn't matter whether it's Erev Shabbos in the summer or Erev Shabbos in the winter. It makes no difference. It's trying to squeeze what needs to be done into that amount of time. It's not normal. My brother used to have a sign up on his wall in his bedroom. We said that the only person who ever got his work done by Friday was Robinson Crusoe. Which I guess whatever. It's a book. Do you know what a book? It's
a book.
Bits of paper and. Never mind. You know what? It doesn't matter. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have brought it up.
Did they have pictures in?
Huh?
Did they have pictures in?
Not moving pictures.
Oh,
no,
no.
you don't know what that is. No. Okay.
That was really
Huh?
good. Does it play videos? No.
Once in a while, I got a good joke.
You have a good joke.
Once in a while, you got a good joke. Right?
Oh, me? No, well, it wasn't. I mean, it's not my joke. My brother had it up on his wall. It was a poster. It wasn't his joke either. It was some. He bought it and stuck it up on his wall. Yeah.
I didn't get the joke.
Never mind. What's astonishing about Erev Shabbos is that the minute that siren goes, or the minute the Shabbos candles get lit, that's it. It's the most incredible moment. It really is, because the whole house is upside down and people are running around.
Rabbi Tat says that. Rabbi Tat said, the second it comes in, it's just be. You've got to just be with it, whatever happens.
That's it, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it's absolute. It's the most incredible moment. It really is.
Feels tremendous.
It's done, finished. It's over. Nothing more can be done. There's a beautiful story they tell. Rabbi Aryeh Levine, who was one of the greatest rabbis in the previous generation, he was actually known as the rabbi of the prisoners, because during the mandate period, he went into the prisons and he looked after them, even though these people weren't from. A lot of them weren't from. Nevertheless, they loved him. They loved him, and he loved them. And Rabbi Aryeh Levine once heard that there was a makolet owner who kept his makolet open on Friday nights. It was open after Shabbos came in, and he went one Friday. He got himself ready for Shabbos, and Rabbi Aryeh Levine, he got dressed up in his Shabbos finery, which included a shtreimel. And he went on Friday afternoon before Shabbos came in. He went and he sat unobtrusively in the corner of the makolet and he's watching what's going on. And people are coming and they're buying and they're going and they're buying and they're going, and then you can hear the shofars that were being blown in the olden days. They used to blow shofars around to let people know that Shabbos was coming in. And no reaction from the shop owner. He's still there. He's still buying. And people are still coming in and he's still selling. And then it starts getting dark and it's completely dark outside and people are still coming in and going. Rabbi Aryeh Levine's just sitting in the corner watching what's going on. And finally, after a little while, it gets quiet. No one in there, and the shop owner turns to Rabbi Aryeh Levine and he says to him, Rebbe, he says, "What are you doing here?" So Rabbi Aryeh Levine told him, he said, "I heard that your makolet was open on Shabbos, and I thought to myself, the only reason why anybody would keep their makolet open on Shabbos is because there are so many people coming in and going out that it's hard to close up when you're." When you're doing such great business, it's hard to close up. And the makolet owner looked at Rabbi Aryeh Levine and he starts to cry. And he says to him, Rebbe, he says, "You're the only person who's ever said that." He says, "All the other from people come here and they scream and they shout. And you're the only person who's ever tried to understand why I do what I do." And Rabbi Aryeh Levine looked at him and he says, he says, I truly empathize with you, he says, but what can you do? Shabbos is Shabbos. And then he left the store. And a few weeks later, the store was closed on Shabbos. Which means that we gotta believe this stuff. If we believe this stuff, we can make an impact. We really can. I think I told you, I can't remember, but I think I told you this story. It's a very beautiful story of Shach, who was the great Rosh Hashiva from Ponevezh in Bnei Brak, was once walking on Shabbos afternoon with one of his Talmidim, and Bnei Brak borders, there's a great big road that runs at the bottom of Bnei Brak called Rehov Jabotinsky. On the other side is Ramat Gan. Ramat Gan is not very frum, and they get not very far away from Jabotinsky Street, and it's like it's a busy road, and you can hear the cars going down it. And Rav Shach turned to his Talmud and he says to him, "Tell me," he says, "what's that noise that we can hear?" So his Talmud says to him, "They're cars, Rebbe." So he says to him, "Why are there cars?" So he says, "Well, because it's Rehov Jabotinsky." So Rav Shach says to him, "Why are there cars on Rehov Jabotinsky?" So this Talmud thought that Rav Shach was, was going senile. It's like, everybody knew that Rehov Jabotinsky was the thoroughfare that took you past Ramat Gan into Tel Aviv. These places are not from. So he says, "Rebbe," he says, "because that's the border between Bnei Brak and Ramat Gan. It's finished." So Rav Shach said to him, "No," he says, "that's not the reason why there are cars on Rehov Jabotinsky." He says, "The reason there are cars on Rehov Jabotinsky is because here in Bnei Brak, we don't take Shmira Shabbos, we don't take keeping Shabbos seriously enough. If we were to take our Shmira Shabbos seriously, then in Rehov Jabotinsky they wouldn't drive either, because that feeling would be felt. It would it would ripple its way along and be felt all over the place." Yeah, that's the power of Shabbos. Some of you will have heard me say this over and over again, but you know what? I've never come across anybody who became frum because somebody threw a rock through his windshield. I've met plenty of people who became frum because they were given a bowl of cholent. Now, in my opinion, they're both deadly. Right? But obviously one of them seems to be lethal, from love, and the other one is not. If we want to have an impact on people, right? We have to be role models to those people. So I'll tell you the most important dimension of all, which maybe we'll end with this for today, but it really is the most important dimension, is that you have to be passionate about what you believe in. If you're not passionate about it, don't expect anyone else to be passionate about it. Which means that if your Shabbos observance, not you, if one's Shabbos observance is lackadaisical, if one's Shabbos observance is revolving around, it's a chore to keep Shabbos, but you know what, I look at myself as being frum, so I'm going to keep Shabbos, don't imagine for 1 second that you'll be able to influence other people to keep Shabbos. But if you are excited about Shabbos, if you are excited about being able to keep Shabbos and that everything that Shabbos stands for, then that excitement will be felt by other people. It's a big thing, right? You actually got to believe this stuff. It's not enough just to do it. You got to believe it as well. Which I guess brings us back to your question at the beginning, right? The more I believe, the more that I'm tapped in, the more that I want to do what it is that I'm doing, first of all, the greater is my quality of life, and the greater is my ability to have an impact on other people without doing anything. Lilmod or lilamed. To learn and to teach. To teach other people just by example, that's all. To be a personal example to other people of what it means to be passionate and to be happy and to be excited about being frum.